So as we pick up, now the story gets crazier, right? So crazy enough that I'm in love with my BFF of 35 years, but now also you know that it was my ex-fiance's best friend. Also, as a footnote, part 2, best friends of my other best friend, the female BFF, her husband, all best friends. So when he's driving me to the airport, post the party saying, Raymond, what's going on? Adding another level to the crazy, because he too is best friends with my ex-fiance. So now he is armed with this information and knows the shitstorm that is about to possibly happen. Now at the time, this hasn't gone full on to a relationship, but at a certain point when it was evidence that we are going to do this, he and I are going to go into this relationship, he says, my female BFF's husband, y'all need to talk to the other guy. Y'all need to talk to so-and-so. I'm not using names here because I've been advised not to. I say it's my story to tell, and again, I'm not trying to lay people out here, but I can respect that. Says, you guys need to talk to him because I don't want him to find out and then him look at me saying, why didn't you tell me that this was going on? So all due respect to my former male BFF who I launched into this relationship with, he did. He called my ex-fiance up and said, man, I want to schedule something and us have a talk. And so he did. So hat tip, did the right thing, but it was at the advising of the husband of my female BFF, which we were all good friends. And so he did that. And of course, there was the conversation of, was this going on back in the day? And of course, there was a reassurance that there had not been. Now, let's talk about back in the day. We had been platonic. However, there was one moment. And we were all out in LA. We were all partying and, having a good time. My ex-fiance and I were not together at the time from college because we had broken up a couple of times throughout that relationship before we finally got engaged and lived together. However, he was engaged, meaning my former BFF, he was engaged and was in graduate school. And there was much conversation about concern from the friends about that he had gotten engaged because there was a lot of, he was the brooding sort. And so he had gotten his heart broken from her in college at the time because he had gone on to become engaged in graduate school from his high school sweetheart who became his college best friend. I hope this isn't confusing, but if it is, it's because it's confusing as fuck. That's why, okay? That's why. Be clear, that's why. But anyway, he had gotten his heart broken. He was brooding. We would have to go in and see about him and take him out, water him, give him sunlight because he really did get his heart broken by her. And this is part of the reason why we bonded so much, was because I saw his vulnerability. I saw his sensitivity. I saw his deep sense of loyalty that he had to the people who he really loved and his family. And I just loved that about him, and that he was willing to be so transparent and so raw. And so, anyway, there was a lot of concern about him going on and going to grad school and then falling back into that relationship and getting engaged. A lot of the friends, there was a lot of conversation about it. And so that's what actually ended up happening. So when we're at this party and we are all hanging out as friends, we were drinking, but I don't get drunk. He rarely drinks. And there was a moment where we were alone in a room, and everybody was in another room, and we were just talking our long, in-depth conversations that we would have, like 3-4 hour conversations. And it would be like time just stood still, you know? And he leaned in and he kissed me. He kissed me, and I still remember that kiss. And I let him. And I remember looking at him and saying, "Don't do it. Please don't get married." And that was why, because I had remembered his heartbreak. And I know that he at the time had a deep sense of guilt and obligation. And many of us felt like that was the driver for that. Now, everything happens for a reason. He was meant to get married, and he did, and became his wife and mother of his children, and all these things are supposed to happen. But at the time, I knew what I knew because I knew him. And he just thought I was being normal, flirty Kelly, non-filter. He didn't take me seriously, but I can tell you at the time I was serious. Because that was my first moment of insight in that I really care a lot about this guy. But again, never crossed any boundary because, well, I guess that was a crossing of a boundary, but that was the only one. It was a moment of clarity. And I remember thinking, if he doesn't, there's a possibility that we could explore what is. And that was the one and only time that I allowed myself to even go along that line of thinking. And he dismissed it. And that door got closed and never again, never was opened again until that day of the party. So stay tuned for the next episode. And I will begin talking about how our relationship began and outline what happened. Please stay tuned, like and share. Follow me if you're not for the next episode.